The Maryland Terrapins went 2-3 last season. And what we've got with the Terps is the consistent like building of Mike Locksley. Now, Mike Locksley, one of the things that came with his arrival was the idea that he was going to be able to recruit, particularly in the Mid-Atlantic DMV area. And as he's tried to give Maryland a good presence there and lean into some of those own personal connections he's had, Maryland's been able to get a couple of really good players on campus. Now, the biggest exciting, buzzy thing that I've got on my notepad coming off of 2020 was, Talia Tagovailoa, right? He is proven with his immediate arrival and some of his immediate production to be, not just some sort of like Alabama to his little brother. Like, I think that Talia can be a real difference maker for Maryland. Now, there's also a lot of concerns here. And this team had so many COVID issues. I mean, it's crazy. I don't know how Maryland always has injuries and always, like, even when we didn't have injuries, we had COVID issues. I mean, this is the program that took a linebacker and made him as the 5th string quarterback a few years ago. I don't know what Under Armour did to make the, injury gods mad, but the Terps have really struggled with that over time. But I just generally see for Maryland the idea that we're not floundering, but we are also not surging. And so this spring, what I would like to do is I'd like to really soak in and try to pick up, what is going to be defensively, who are going to be some of our playmakers, what are going to be our identity, and then offensively, what does the skill position talent look like around Talia as this Maryland team? Like, I think it's not a high floor, but it is a moderately size. It's like a 72-inch floor, 6 feet right there, middle of the road. But again, I'm not putting a very high ceiling on it. So a lot of obviously hoping for better injury luck for the Terps and also trying to figure out what the skill position talent is going to look like around Talia this spring and fall.
Maryland is like Groundhog Day. It's just like every year I feel like I'm in the exact same spot with Maryland where, hey, this is a really talented team. If things gel and somebody, they figure things out, this is a team with a really high ceiling. But then, like you were talking about, Chip, something happens every season that completely derails the train. And then you go into the new season saying, well, that can't happen again. And this is still a really talented team. Anything can happen. And you look at their team in 2021 and you go through Connolly's returning projection rankings and you see that of the teams in the division, they rank the highest. They're 10th overall, 14th on offense, 17th on defense in returning production. So you look at all that and it's like, hey, this team has a lot of talent. It could be pretty good. Something is definitely going to go wrong. And you mentioned Talia. I think Talia had some very good moments, but I think he really needs to work on turnovers because he had a 7 touchdown, 7 interception touchdown ratio last year, 1-to-1, not typically what you want. And I just think that he really needs to take better care of the football because it really did hurt that offense at times. He was too loose. He was putting the defense in bad positions. He was killing drives that, had momentum, and it was costing them games. So I think you need to see improvement there. But I do think that around the board, they had a couple of their bigger players on defense last year. They're more impact players like Mosiah and Asili Kite. These are young kids who are now a year older who are getting better, and they had impacts last year. Ruben Hippolyte. Is it Hippolyte or Hippolyte?
I thought it was Hippolyte.
Okay.
Yeah.
He, as a freshman last year, he showed flashes of being a kid that could be something special. So there's plenty of reason to think, hey, man, maybe Maryland's going to a bowl game this year. Maybe things go well. They're winning 7-8 games. And there's also plenty of reason to think, hey, man, they're probably going to go 2-10.
I know this is crazy because I've really been a long time Mike Locksley doubter. But if you take out the first game when against Northwestern, and which it was really that game and the Navy game against BYU were the two games I think on the year, maybe that Middle Tennessee game to open the year too, where I was like, okay, it's very clear that this team did not practice at all. They have, like, Navy admitted to not using contact in their practice, and just the results were so incongruous with the rest of the year. If you look at the rest of the year, like once Maryland actually got hit a little bit, I mean, they played extremely well against Minnesota and won the game. It was probably closer than it should have been.
That was a
They
fun game.
they outplayed Penn State. Now, look, that's the game I think Penn State probably quit in, but Maryland still showed up and beat a Penn State team that has more talent. They played Indiana pretty tough, actually, and it was maybe a little bit bigger margin than it should have been. And then they actually outplayed Rutgers, I think, and lost the game. I like this team's receiving core a whole lot. I think, do you remember Chiggy Okonkwo, the tight end they had in 2019?
Mhm.
He's actually back. He missed 2020 with an injury, so it makes me like this offense, even more. But I have a couple questions. Number one, defensive front, offensive front. I think this offensive line has a whole lot of questions they got to get figured out this fall or this spring, rather. They were not able to push the ball down the field last year despite all those receivers. Talia actually against zone defenses was really, really bad, and he tore up man-to-man defenses. It's a pretty big split. We usually don't see this. Tom, you seeing this on your screen?
No.
98 QB rating against man coverage, 50 against zone coverage. Like, you don't see splits that big. So that's a little something to work on this spring, I would say.
Diagnosing a defense is something maybe that helps explain the 7 interceptions.
Yeah, I would say so. Those are things that you got to watch for. Their pass defense last year was outstanding. Really, nobody threw the ball effectively on them. Maybe it helps they didn't have to play Ohio State, but their pass defense was good. To me, it's just, can they block, and can their run defense just go from like bad to below average or okay? If so, I think this team can make a bowl game.